Good morning, everybody. We are so excited to see you now in 2023. If you're just coming in, there are a few seats sprinkled in over here. There's a few seats up top. And we can pull in some more chairs if need be. There's some chairs over here to this far side. What a great problem to have. Wow. Welcome to PIN, Parent Information Network of Cherry Creek School District. How many of you are here for the first time ever? Please raise your hand. Wow, congratulations for starting your year off in the right place. That is awesome. You want to be back here March 7th and April 6th. Be right back here, first Tuesday of the month, 9:15. There's going to be some other great speakers. We have bookmarks in the back that will tell you what's going on. How many of you have heard of our speaker? Cheryl. Okay. How many of you just trust us that we're going to bring you a good speaker? How many of you are here particularly for this topic? Wow, great. Okay, we have a quick message. I am Susu Duga, and I have been involved in PIN since my oldest child, who's 29, was in first grade. And, oh yeah. And because of my involvement with PIN, I have learned so many crazy things. I learned about bath salts, not the kind that go in your bath. Something that you ingest in your body. I have learned about CBD and THC. I've learned about anxiety as a disorder versus just a normal thing that we all have. I've learned about so many different things. And I encourage you to put PIN in your regular habit of first Tuesday of the month from September, October, November, February, March, and April to help you on your journey as being a parent. This is not easy. And we need all the help we can get, the encouragement, the ideas, but not just information that you get on the internet, but we need the encouragement, the insight, the wisdom, the chewing on things together, the personalized way that you can interact with our speakers at times. So thank you for being here. I'd like to have one of our board members come up. If you're a board member, can y'all turn around? If you're a board member and you're here today, raise your hand, board members. So there's people all over, there's people in the group. We are just a bunch of people who are passionate about education, parenting, and things that affect our kids and our families. If that sounds like something that you're passionate about, talk to one of us who has a special name tag on. And we would invite you to a board meeting, which is the second Tuesday of each month. I'd like to introduce Jamie Lynn, who's one of our newer board members. And she has her hands full with a bunch of preschoolers. And she's going to tell you about a way that you can stay engaged and informed.
So we are trying to get the word out about our PIN meetings and boards. So if you can all take out your phone, and if you don't have Facebook or Instagram, this would be a reason to maybe think about getting it, but just like the PIN community. It's pin.ccsd, so PIN, Cherry Creek School District. pin.ccsd, Facebook and Instagram. If you could just give us a like on things that we post just to kind of get the word out, tell other people about it as well. If you are a member of your PTA community in your school district, connecting there too. So just another way we're getting the word out. So thanks, guys. Are we passing it on to our speaker now? Okay. Were you going to say anything else? Okay.
All right, stand up, everybody. Get your blood moving. Thankfully, you are all here on time, so you've been sitting for a while. So, those of us who have a preschooler or younger, put up 2 arms. Wave those arms if you have preschoolers or younger. Wow, y'all are starting early. I love that. Your life is going to be so much easier. Okay. How about those, I call it the golden years, kindergarten through 5th grade. 2 arms. Wow, we got a lot of people who are realizing, noticing things in their kids young. That's good. How about those of you who are hanging on by your fingernails? Middle school? Yeah. You're here because you would rather be here than beating your head against a wall. How about those people who are seeing the light at the end of the tunnel? High school. How many of you are ready for them to walk out the door? And how many of you are starting to get a little sentimental? Okay. How about those of you who feel like you've kind of launched your kids? College, job, apartment. Woohoo! Look, there's hope. How many of you are grandparenting? Yay! How many of you are fostering? Anybody? Okay. Did I leave out a cat? How many of you work with kids for pay? Okay. Great. All right. Thank you. Have a seat. So as I told you, my kids are all out of the house. They're all in their 20s. My baby's about to turn 25. And I've got a 20, and he's in town. And my 26-year-old, we just got to go visit. She has created a life in Colombia, the country, and has a stepdaughter and a husband. So, life throws you some curveballs that you don't get to control and you don't expect. So gather everything you can while you can now. And then I've got a 29-year-old who decided she had wanted to go back to school, and she now is a lawyer. So I'm in a whole different season of my life, but I look at all of you guys who are still in the middle of it. You're in the throes of it. You have these different issues. I was talking to my sister-in-law, and I'm like, oh, those were hard years. Those teenage years, hard years. Talk to my neighbors. Oh, those middle school years are tough, and social dynamics and blah, 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 homework. It's hard. There's a lot of joys, though. How many of y'all have some joys of parenting? Good. Thank goodness, huh? But if every day is not joyful, we do have the book Mommy Burnout. And it probably works for Daddy Burnout, too? Yeah. So I want to introduce you to our speaker. Dr. Cheryl is a licensed clinical psychologist and a play therapist in her private group practice collective called the Child and Family Therapy Center in Lowry. She is the author of the best-selling and award-winning book, which we have available for sale, called Mommy Burnout: How to Reclaim Your Life and Raise Healthier Children in the Process. Dr. Cheryl is a regular national and local news contributor on topics related to parenting and mental health. She did a TEDx talk on why moms are miserable. Power of connection. That's not for any of you here. Not all the time. She's the host of Dr. Cheryl's Pod Couch. which I've listened to and is very useful. And if you'd like to get that information, you can sign the pink sheets in the back, and you can get that in your emails. The founder of the Parent-Child Puberty course, Start with the Talk. How many of your kids are on the verge of puberty or adolescence? Okay, you might be interested in that. And she is the 9 News parenting and mental health expert. So there's a lot more things I could say about her, but she's got a lot to say, and that's why you're here, because all of y'all are here for this topic. So get your pencils and pens and your minds ready, and hold on.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm so glad everyone's here. And anybody needs a seat in the back, there's 3 in the front. I don't bite. Come on up if you want. 3 in the front. Okay, so this talk is going to pertain to whatever age your kids are. So we start to see perfectionistic tendencies even in toddlers. So whether you have a preschooler or you've got a kid in college, this could pertain to your child. It could also pertain to yourself. So sometimes, right, perfectionistic parents make perfectionistic kids. And we're going to just talk about every aspect of this. By the end of this talk, I hope you're going to leave here with really some actionable steps. I want you to think. Being a perfectionist, of course, sometimes you'll find articles like the upside of a perfectionist. I think we all know what that is, right? Super high achievers. But there's a big mental health cost to that. And so we want well-rounded kids. So what we're going to talk about today is perfectionism, anxiety. You guys are going to then talk in little small groups, kind of figure out where on the spectrum do you think your kid might land. Some strategies, and then hopefully you'll be chatting with me because I want to know what you're thinking about, and then we'll close. Okay, so I'm going to jump right in. So perfectionism. So let me explain to you how I even know so much about this, because it's a little happenstance. When you go to grad school, they don't teach you, perfectionism is not a diagnosis. So they don't teach you this. But what happened was I started my practice in Lowry about 16 years ago. And I started, it starts with one parent who refers to the next and the next. Well, they happen to all be in the HGT track kinds of kids. And then all of a sudden, I started to realize that there was a commonality with all of these kids. They were very bright. I work with very bright kids. And they're also very anxious. And so that's why they see me. So they don't come. It's not like you're welcome to the gifted program and go straight to therapy, but a lot of those kids are in therapy. So it's hard to have such an amazing mind. It is actually hard. So anyone who's in this room who's ever talked to me about their gifted kid, I'll say, emotionally, they are, let's say, chronologically, your kid is 9. Emotionally, maybe they're about 8. And then cognitively, they're 13, right? They're reading at a college level in elementary school. I've got those kids. And then, maybe motor-wise, they're their age. So you've got this uneven development, which is really hard to navigate in childhood. It is hard. The ideal is that, we're there, sure, you want your kid. The parents, with the preschoolers who are like, my kid's already reading. All I think is I smile and say, oh, boy. That's what I really think. So, I'm more of the spirit of a European spirit of kids should read when they're 7. They should just be playing for the first 6 years. But that's not our society. So we have this sort of epidemic in our country. And it's actually being really studied in college students, because if you don't figure this out by college, you kind of crash and burn in college. And anybody who walks around, especially a high-achieving campus, will tell you, this whole campus is filled with anxiety. The whole thing is anxiety. And so I'm trying to prevent that. So that's why we're here. So again, any age, think any age in your head. So here are some signs that your kid might be a perfectionist. They are prone to repetitive behaviors. So that might be surprising to you, but nail biters and hair twirlers Why? Because they're thinking and they're trying to get something right. So it could be like, I'm trying to get this curl just right, or I'm trying to think of something in my head. So they tend to be repeaters, right? That's what helps them focus and concentrate. In general, they're unable to relax. So they're not really like usually a super chill kid. Now, you might be thinking, well, they sit in their room and read all the time. The excessive readers, I know them too. I just, over Christmas, one of them, they were like, she spent like 4 hours a day on our, beach vacation reading. That's a little excessive, right? That's a little excessive. And I know some of you have those kids. They're just the readers. So I would argue at some point it's not fully relaxing to have your brain on all the time. And anything gone, anything to excess is excess, right? So even excessively reading, right? That might be hyper-focused. So just paying attention to that. They're challenged to perform a task at a normal pace. They want to get things done fast. I'm used to getting things done fast. I understand things fast. Things do not come hard for me. So if I don't get this fast and quick, what do? They quit. I'm done, right? So your kid who's so high achieving, who's so bright or so gifted in whatever area, if they don't get that done and real fast, they're out. And you're like, no, buddy, come back. Like, we'll try again. There's no try again. My brain does not function like that. I don't try again. I get it done right the first time. So if I don't, this is the brain, right? Like some of us might be like, I like to get things done right the first time, right? But my brain goes like, all right, I got to persevere, right? That's my grit. Like maybe I'll take a break, then I'll come back, try to figure it out. Their brains are just, I'm done. But what their brains then say to themselves is, I'm stupid, right? I'm an idiot. Nobody's going to like me. People are going to know that. So the self-talk is rough. The internal dialogue of a perfectionist is so harsh, okay? So that's why this really matters. They exhibit frustration, impatience, dissatisfaction when they don't reach their goal, and sometimes even when they reach their goal. So sometimes, yes, they've been working on like the Millennium Falcon, right? I've got kids doing that right now, and they're just every day with their, I don't even know how many pieces of Legos. I think it's like 50,000. I don't even know. But, they're like working on it, and they're great, and they're just great. And when they reach their goal, and I want to celebrate with them, it's like 2 seconds. All right, what's next? Oh, wait, you just worked on that amazing Lego. Now that we do telehealth too, they take their little cameras around the room and they show me, look at what I'm working on. And sometimes there's just not a whole lot of room for celebration. It's like, I'm on to the next thing. So I think as a parent, that's our job. Like, slow down, hold on. You worked on that for a week. I saw you day in, day out, and really being able to praise that, slow them down so they can celebrate things. And they appear to have it all together at the surface, right? So you go out with your perfectionistic child, and everybody's so amazed. They're so smart because they're awesome at talking to adults, right? Sometimes not so great at talking or playing with kids. They'll say things like, they just don't play like I do. I think the things they do are boring. So if you've got a kid who's a perfectionist or who's a really high achiever, again, remember the different ages. The emotional age, sometimes they don't know how to be in their emotional age because their cognitive age or their need for perfection has them advancing ahead. So those are some common descriptors of the perfectionist. This is not my quote, but I thought it was a good one. Perfectionistic people typically believe they can never be good enough. That mistakes are signs of personal flaws, and that the only route to acceptability as a person is to be perfect. Whew, right? That's a lot. It's a lot to carry. That's a load to carry. So the challenges, if I haven't already made a case for the challenges, but these are sort of research-based challenges. They can be difficult. This can be difficult for themselves or others to recognize. Right? Especially, not especially, I think teachers recognize it. What to do about it is a challenge, right? So people who are really skilled, probably at looking for this, can see it, but then what do you do about it? So it's difficult for themselves. So this is the most common thing I hear from perfectionists. I'll say, gosh, something like, I know it's really hard for you when things don't come easy, or you've made a mistake, or you just couldn't figure that out. And then I'll say something like, I wonder if we can keep doing things like this. Like, what if we kept doing things that you couldn't figure out? That might be the most uncomfortable thing you could possibly say. And they'll say, but because I'm like this, I am a straight A student. Because I'm like this, now my high school kids, right? Because I did this, I did all of this work. This is kind of like freshmen, sophomores. Freshmen, sophomore perfectionists are like, they're working so hard. I'm working. So I'm going to sign up for this AP. I'm going to take 4 APs. I'm going to take 5 APs. I'm going to do, right? And they've got these schedules. And I just say, like, where's there room in the schedule for anything else? And where are we having any fun, right? And then the debate and the challenge, which is legitimate, is, but I want to be a high achiever. I want to go to Yale. I want to go to do this. I want to go to UCLA, whatever. And this is what you need to do. And this gets kind of pounded into their heads kind of early. So we have a society that perpetuates perfectionism. And there is an outcome that's generally quite positive. Depends on the metric that you're looking at. So if you're looking at the metric of grades, yeah, they tend to do really well. And again, it comes at a major cost. So that's freshman, sophomore year of high school. Then junior, senior year is where I see the crash and burn, right? At a pretty important year, junior year. So they're getting the message. It's junior year. This is the year. And then I'm saying, like, oh boy, we need to find some balance. Okay, you came this far. We're right here. So I'm going to tell you, too, it's really great. But how we get over the hump. How can you remain a high achiever? How can you remain awesome at so many things you do and not let your mental health sacrifice in the meantime? You can do it, but it takes a lot of work. And when they're in high school or college, that's rewiring the brain. So if we are doing it in elementary school, we're wiring the brain. So much better to do it then, a little easier. You have to recognize it, though. So parents, you have to recognize it, too. They're less likely to get help because, again, it's not really a diagnosis. So what do you say? You think, oh, I'm going to call somebody and be like, my kid's a perfectionist? Yes, call somebody and say, my kid's a perfectionist, because they will then know they're also probably anxious or have low self-esteem or might be feeling depressed. And it can lead to self-destructive behaviors. So that piece I wrote on the bottom, linked to self-harm and in over 50% of suicides. So after somebody has died by suicide, there's generally sort of an interview to try to understand that person's life, their mental health history, their life history. And being a perfectionist, in the latest study that I saw, was that about 56% of people said they were a perfectionist. So it's actually really serious. And the self-harm piece is very strong too, okay? So it's, people kind of joke about perfectionists, and sometimes I do too, but there's actually a really serious side to it. So then there's anxiety. So perfectionism is thought to be on an anxiety continuum. Anxiety is the single most diagnosed condition in our country and the second most in the world. We are walking around with a society of anxious people, and we are making anxious kids. And in some cases, for really good reason, there are serious things going on that would cause anybody to be anxious, right? There's a lot going on in the world, from natural disaster to politics to mass shootings to suicides. We are in Colorado, a suicide cluster. We are really impacted by very real things. So there's that line of, again, these kids will argue to me, well, wouldn't you be anxious too if you were a kid my age going to high school these days? Probably. And so it comes from somewhere, but it needs to be managed. I want you to understand anxiety, define it for you. There are 11 types of anxiety. I picked the 3 that I see the most common, and then I really want you to understand the difference between the 3, because I want you to keep really thinking about your kid. Are they a perfectionist who's anxious? Are they an anxious kid who's got perfectionistic tendencies? It can go either way. So generalized anxiety disorder, sometimes referred to as GAD, generalized anxiety disorder, is excessive worry, Worries around everyday events. So that's just driving somewhere, walking into a space, just things you do every single day, worried about it. A fear response that is out of proportion. That is out of proportion. So something happens. Yeah, anybody might be a little alarmed. They are overly alarmed. They're overly concerned. It can last years to months. It's highly hereditary. It affects focus and concentration. And it may or may not include panic attacks. So I'm going to say a word about panic attacks because people sometimes interchange panic and anxiety, and they're different. They stem from a similar place, but they're different. A panic attack, right? So you might say, which I get calls, my kid had a panic attack at school today. So a panic attack is actually when you can't breathe. You feel like you can't breathe. You think you're having a heart attack. For men, it's one of the number one reasons they go to the ER. They're convinced they're having a heart attack. They're having a panic attack. So panic attack is you can't breathe, right? And anxiety attacks, like you might freak out. And the kid's like, I'm freaking out. I had to ask for a bathroom pass. I had to go to the bathroom. That's an anxiety. Panic feels like you're dying, okay? So if your kid has that feeling, if they say to you, I can't, like they're in panic. They really, they're having a hard time catching their breath. So there's very real somatic symptoms to panic and anxiety. Then there's social anxiety. So lots of people, maybe on the younger side too, but it can affect any age, extreme fear of social situations. That starts off, right? Could start off with your little one that's holding onto your leg. No, don't go, right? They don't want to go. They experience extreme fear of criticism or scrutiny by others. So let me just really say that, like the fear that they would have for somebody to even notice them in some cases is so extreme. Just don't even notice me. I'm just going to be so little. It's so quiet in this corner. I hope nobody sees me at all. I hope the teacher doesn't call me, right? The fear is like, oh, hey, Katie, do you know what I was talking? Can you answer that question? Like that would cause what would feel like for some panic. Okay, so this is social anxiety. Causes generally avoidance. They don't want to go places. They don't want to go to the birthday party. They don't want to go out with their friends because they have that social anxiety. And it typically causes impairments in all areas of functioning, school, work, sports, relationships. So that's social anxiety. And then the third most common that I see is performance anxiety. So this can be triggered by tests, right? I know some of you have the kid in here who really, right? Normal, worried about a test, a little nervous, even if you studied, like, I'm nervous, I'm worried, I really hope I do good. Totally normal anxiety. That's great. It gets us going, right? Gets adrenaline pumping in our body, gets us awake and alert. Fine. And then you have straight up hyperventilation, have to leave the room, lots of stomach aches, right? Your kid has a stomach ache, they probably have anxiety. That chronic stomach ache is always a sign of, I don't feel good, I don't feel good, I don't feel good. Oh, we're at 7 absences and 10 latenesses, right? Because I don't feel good and I don't want to go to school. And again, you can make yourself sick. They can. So then you're like, well, but they had diarrhea this morning. Are they? Yes, you can, right? Your mental health can affect your physical health, which can result in that sensation, which is really hard for parents because you're like, I don't know whether to send them to school or not. And who am I to tell them that their stomach ache isn't bad enough to go to school? So then that gets really hard. And so other things that cause them, of course, are stage fright, obviously. Something like public speaking, something like just standing up in front of the class and having to read something, even reading out loud, just anything that feels like maybe a performance or that more than one set of eyes will be on them can cause real anxiety. And they fear that they can't perform a task, and it triggers the fight, flight, or freeze. So there really is a lot of cortisol and adrenaline running through the body of somebody who has stage fright or performance anxiety. So, it can be really disorienting in your mind and in your body. So the difference between worry and anxiety, okay? So on the left are the little symbols for being worried. I guess my list was too long for the right. There were not enough little symbols. But on the left, being worried means you have a typical reaction to stress. But you can go on with your functioning, right? So if I'm worried about something, Oh, I'm worried. I'm worried that, I'm going to be late for my flight. I was just flying this weekend, right? It's just worry. It's just going to make me move a little faster and maybe skip getting water and just go straight to the gate, right? That's worry, but I'm functioning. I'm getting there. I'm getting to the gate. And once the trigger's over, okay, I made it to the gate. It's done. My worry's done, right? And I'm back to hopefully a baseline calm level of functioning. When you have anxiety, you have an out of proportion reaction to that stress, inappropriate age level response. So you see this a lot in kids where all of a sudden you're like, they just regressed. It's like to having a tantrum and being a toddler, but they're 10, right? So that happens. When we stress, we regress. That's a saying you should have implanted in your head. When we stress, we regress. This goes on through adulthood. We go back to a younger state of being, maybe a time where we either felt safe or we didn't feel safe, but it's really common. And so when you see your kid who's X age, 19 for all we know, right? And then you're like, oh my gosh, they're acting like this. Okay, they're acting like they're in high school. This is what's happening right now. As a result of the pandemic, I know everyone's heard it, but I'm going to underscore this. Kids are about at least 2 emotional years behind. My college kids are acting like high school kids. The high school kids are acting like they're in middle school. I mean, I just had a teacher say this. I was observing a teacher, and I looked at her with wide eyes like, oh my gosh, I don't even know how you're doing what you're doing. And she's like, oh, these middle schoolers, they're like 5th graders. They are literally 7th is 5th right now. And the thing that's very interesting about human development is we can't skip milestones. You can't skip milestones. So I know you're thinking maybe like, well, my kid barely crawled and they just started walking. There's always the crawl. Even if it's quick and brief, we develop quite sequentially. So if you have a 17-year-old that's acting like a 15-year-old, they actually have to go through 15, 16, 17. They got to go through it. So we all have to hang in here while all of our kids are at least 2 to 3 years regressed, right? And there's a variation in the room. Lots of variables depend on this. Data will be out, I'm sure, in a couple years, right? But it'll depend. How long were they in mass? How long were they out of school? Were they homeschooled? Were they, like, whatever all the variables are? But in general, they're really regressed. So all of us have to be patient with remembering that they are. And even if you're like, well, maybe my kid's like a year regressed. Guess what? All the kids around them are anywhere from 1 to 3 years regressed. So they're around more immaturity. And so you really, really want to remember when we stress, we regress. They have atypical responses. They have impaired functioning. Excessive anticipatory stress. This is a term that a lot of times when I'm talking to groups, they're like, oh yeah, I didn't know there was a term for that. But anticipatory anxiety or anticipatory stress, it just means you are an extreme worrier about things that haven't even happened yet. It could happen. It might happen. It's going to happen. And so there's a whole segment of people that's their thing. The anticipatory anxiety causes fight, flight, or freeze. It doesn't go away when the stress is over. That's a big marker. Is it anxiety or the excessive worrier? They're just like kind of a worrier, but they're okay. Or this is a big one. It doesn't go away when that stress is over. So that's what you should be thinking about. They attempt to avoid triggers. They're not generally the kinds of kids, whether they're perfectionists or anxious, that, yeah, bring on the challenge, bring it. That's not usually them. It's, I want to avoid the challenge. I don't want to even be confronted with this challenge. And, of course, the physical signs. So remember, headaches and stomach aches are the 2 biggest ones. You're going to the GI. The GI is running a whole bunch of tests. They're doing, like, sometimes when I have a kid with that's their presenting problem is their stomach aches, I say, all right, I don't want to miss anything. So go to the GI, go ahead and get their testing done. I don't think I've had a single kid yet, in my experience, that the GI doc has said, yes, we found something. They don't usually, in my experience, and I think in general, they don't usually find something. But you do want to rule it out, right? So we do that, and then we start working. So it's complicated. The pursuit of perfection becomes a maladaptive way of coping with the distress of anxiety. So what I'm saying is that this is a 2-way street, and they kind of go hand in hand. Anxiety and perfectionism are quite interrelated. So it's not exactly easy to figure out where is my kid on this. So what I want to do is I'm going to pause. Probably been talking long enough. I haven't checked. And I want you guys at your tables to talk for the next couple of minutes. What's the difference between worry and anxiety? Where do you think your kid falls on the spectrum? Do you feel confused? Are they both? I'll walk around. So let's just take a couple minutes and share that, and then we'll come back, and we're going to do the what to do next. Okay, everyone, it's been 10 minutes. Do you want to come back? I'm so glad everybody's talking, hopefully sharing about your great kids and grandkids. That's so great. I hope that, I know it, I just walked around a little and everyone's having totally different conversations, which is so great. I love it. I love it. Before I move on, does anybody want to share anything that you guys were talking about? I would love to hear it. Anybody?
Well, I think one of the things we were talking about too is as parents, worry comes with the deal. As a parent, you worry, right? But I think it's an interesting conversation, the difference between worry and anxiety, where it crosses over into anxiety, where you're saying like you can't let go of it, even after it's done. The test is done, but I'm still worried, you know. So I think we were having discussions around just as parents, the worries and where that comes from. Is there anxiety in our families, in the lineage, and things like that? Yeah. But this is a hard job. There's worry, right? Can't get away from that.
It's exhausting. Yeah, that's great points. Absolutely. So I'm so glad you guys shared. We're going to get to what to do about this part. Just got to tell you a couple more maladaptive things, and then we'll get on to what are we going to do about this. So maladaptive ways that perfectionists cope, right? So we're in the coping section. As we all know, there are functional and there are dysfunctional ways of coping with any problem. Functional, dysfunctional, and maybe everything in between. Right? Lots of things, I think, these days, we don't think of things as very dichotomous anymore. They're really on a continuum or on a spectrum. So they procrastinate, right? That seems counterintuitive to think a perfectionist who wants to get things right often procrastinates. Because the anticipatory anxiety, I'm trying to really get you in the head of these kids because I'm so in their heads. And because there's a lot in there and they share a lot. So what happens with the procrastination link? So if anybody here have a procrastinator? Yeah, okay, good. Lots of procrastinators. Anybody here a procrastinator? Yep. We're all having maladaptive ways of coping with stress. So they procrastinate because they're thinking about it and, oh, I need it just right. And, oh, wait, I need that right color. Or I need the right poster board. Or I need the right this. And they will think and think and think and plan. And it's like, the deadline's tomorrow, but I still got to get that one other thing. So what happens is you could just keep it easy, right, on the surface and say, oh my gosh, yeah, they're so great. They're a procrastinator. But what is underneath procrastinating is often ruminating, right? Repetitive thoughts that loop in circles over and over. And they're thinking about it. Like a procrastinator, not about you, but sometimes I actually think I almost did what I was supposed to because I've thought about it so long and hard. And I'm like, oh, wait, I still have to actually do it. But like in my head, I've thought about it every which way. So we have to get them, right, to get it out. So procrastination is a big one. Risk aversion, just again, generally perfectionists are risk averse. They don't, whether it's everything from trying something physical to, like a new activity, a new sport, a new art, or even just a subject that maybe they think is going to be a little tough for them. Risk averse, don't really want to take a lot of risks. And then harsh self-judgment. And I know I queued that up before, but it's really harsh. Okay, so it's not like I can get frustrated with myself and I'm like, oh, I can't believe I did that again. I keep doing that, right? And it's like a little, like I'm beating myself up a little bit, but I'm not saying statements that define me. It's like, I can't believe I did that again. I'm so annoyed at myself, right? That's my inner self-talk if I'm being critical. And I think a perfectionist inner self-talk sounds a lot more like, sometimes it's as extreme as like, I just want to die. And you're like, wow, you take in how hard they are on themselves. I just want to die. I'd rather die. Or I'm so stupid. No one's going to like me. Everyone's going to know that I did such a bad job. I had a kid 2 weeks ago say this was not a public paper, that everyone was going to know that their paper sucked. But I'm like, but how? Only your teachers. I just know. Everyone's just going to know. So these kinds of thoughts around like what other people are going to judge and then what they judge about themselves, is really, really tough. It's tough to hear. And of course, it's tough to live with. So common comorbid mental health conditions with perfectionism, I hope you can see this, is first and foremost, girls and women are more predisposed. Yay, girls. We have so many things we're more predisposed to. So common comorbid, OCD. OCD is high. So remember, OCD is a type of anxiety disorders. There are 11 anxiety disorders, and OCD is one of them. So being obsessive compulsive, and I do mean clinically. So here's what's happened in our country, right? We use like psychological terms like, oh my gosh, you're so OCD. Oh yeah, so am I. I'm OCD. And like we're just all good with it. So there's that. And we know what we mean, but really true obsessive compulsive disorder is debilitating and really, really painful. So this is a common comorbid condition. Eating disorders, number 2. Oh, right? So if you're a perfectionist, real easy to try to control your own body and real easy to just start saying, I can't control anything else around me the way I want to or to my level. So now I'm going to do that to myself, whether that's binging and purging or that's restricting. So we see eating disorders, right? And it's all making sense. Girls, OCD, eating disorders, depression. These are all strong female things. So then you have depression, self-harm, suicidal thoughts, and low self-worth. So I want to take a minute to take that in because, again, being a perfectionist is not something that generally people think of as a serious condition to get very intent about. But the research says differently, and it's just not talked about that much because it's actually thought to be an underlying condition. So there are some researchers that have been studying they've been following 40,000, they started as kids and they're through college now, probably now in their mid-20s, following them as, sort of self-proclaimed perfectionists. And there are scales and all that you can take, and are following their outcomes. And that's where we're getting this data. Not all of it, but strong. This has been a longitudinal study. And so there's really some thinking that a lot of this mental health crisis that we're in, if anybody doesn't know, we're in a mental health state of emergency in pediatrics. We've never been in one. We're still in it. It's been 18 months. And so a lot of the thinking around that is that there's perfectionism sort of has this undercurrent in all of these kind of conditions. So it is something to take really actually quite seriously. Perfectionism by the numbers. So yeah, absolutely. Oh, there was no reason. Oh, it's just PowerPoint. They ran out of colors. No, but that's a great question. I didn't even notice that, but you're right. There are 2 blues and nope. It's literally the colors. I got you spotted. Don't worry. I already know. There was a typo and now there's 2 of the same colors. That's what I should do. I should mess with people like you. Just put things in there and be like, there's no reason at all for it. Okay, so there's no color coding with this either. They're just pretty colors. So burnout. So 68% of workers in the last year, this is from a Deloitte study, said that they felt that their perfectionism has contributed to their burnout. That's high. 66% said that their perfectionism has led to their fear of failure. 66% said conflict avoidance, that because of their perfectionism, they're avoiding conflict. That's a problem because we need kids to be able to communicate, right? So you hear conflict avoidance, what I hear is communication avoidance. This can be an uncomfortable conversation, or I have to confront you on something, or you might want to confront me. I'm going to avoid this. So now we're talking adults. These are adults. 2 times, so socially prescribed perfectionistic type. So there's actually types of perfectionists. Socially prescribed, so I'll tell you what that means. But that has gone up. So in that longitudinal study I was talking about, that's gone up 2-fold in the last decade. So what we see, that one is skyrocketing. So there's the perfectionistic type that goes around and tells everybody else what's wrong with things. And then there's the socially prescribed type, which what that means is I don't feel that I am meeting social standards, right? So let's think social media, right? So I look to see the way people look, how they do their makeup, what they're wearing, whatever, and I don't feel that I meet that mark. That's what socially prescribed means. That's on the rise. I think it's really clear. It's a hypothesis now, but I think it's really clear that that has a strong correlation with social media, right? If all you're looking at are perfect images of people and homes and vacations, even pets, whatever it's going to be, and you don't think you meet that standard, and you look at it for 7.25 hours a day, you're going to feel bad about yourself, right? You're going to feel like my life or myself doesn't meet this criteria. And then teens who have maladaptive perfectionism is about 25 to 30% of the general population. So let's say a quarter of kids meet criteria for having maladaptive perfectionism, just meaning that they're perfectionistic in the way, remember maladaptive coping mechanisms, the way that they cope falls into one of those three categories. So it's a pretty big amount of kids, 1 in 4 kids. 1 in 5 kids right now has a mental disorder condition in America, and out of that, 1 in 4 has maladaptive perfectionism. So we got to look at this. So what do we do? Ideas and solutions, that I have followed through the research. Everything I talk about is research, and if it's not research, I'll say in my experience. I love this idea, and I've been using this idea, and I think it's working really well. So there's an idea called excellencism. Excellencism, it's hard. This is a Professor Goudreau out of Ottawa, Canada, and it's an alternative to perfectionism that really, like, the languaging changes. So let's say you have a kid anywhere on the spectrum, and also, let's just say you're sitting here, you're going, I don't think my kid's like always a perfectionist, but they have that quality or that tendency in certain areas of their life. Then you can say, this is just a way to sort of change language, right? Because sometimes people are, we say like, you don't have to be perfect. Nobody's perfect, right? That doesn't work. Like, it just doesn't work. You say it though, like you're just a parent and you say it. It's natural. Nobody's perfect. Nothing's perfect. But what you can say, and this fits really well for me because I work with, albeit a probably skewed population of these really bright kids, is I still want you to be excellent. You can still be excellent. You can still have a high bar. I just want it to be a bar that is actually achievable in any way, shape, or form for you. Because guess what? It's actually not achievable for 95% of the population. But for you, it actually is achievable. Like, I have a kid right now who got 1 problem wrong on the SAT in math, only 1. Near perfection, right? And he said, I want to take it again. He wants to do it perfect. This isn't the first one. This is just a recent one. So I said to him, do it. It's achievable for you. It's literally achievable for you. If you want to put in that work, do it. I would never say that to 99% of people. Oh yeah, you got a 1,500 on the math, or whatever. You got a 790 on the math section. Take it again. No, but this kid is like serious and is like, it's a little bit of a killer. I only got 1 wrong, and it's bugging me. I had another girl last year. She only got 1 wrong too, and her parents wanted her to take it again, and she was like, no, I think I'm done. I'm good, right? For her, definite high anxiety there. So I was like, no, you don't. And she didn't want to go to an Ivy League school, or she could have, but she didn't. That wasn't her dream. So adjust, right? So for that particular kid, I go, yep, that bar is insane, and it's not achievable for 99% of people, but it is for you. So go for it, right? And we'll find out soon. I'm sure he'll get it. But excellencism, do you guys like this? Because I love this. I really love it. I think it's like a great alternative. So we can set a high bar. You can be excellent. You can be superior. You can be top of your class. Do you need to be number 1 in your class? Right? I guess I've just been working with a kid who's going to graduate number 10 in their class out of hundreds. And we look at each other like staring, and I'm like, this is amazing. And she's like, this is amazing. It's like a mantra. She has to like take it in like, yep, this is amazing. I probably could have been like 5th. Nope, we're not going. We probably could have been like 5th, right? Like we got to own that. So it's excellent, right? It's excellencism. So sometimes I use stats. Sometimes I just use praise. But I try to get very real. You can't tell a perfectionist like, oh, just stop trying to be perfect and just make things messy and just, it's not going to work, right? Like, you have to meet them where they're at, always, with any topic. I always say this when I'm talking about kids. You got to meet them where they're at. You got to meet them where we're at. If I'm striving for 100% perfection, please don't tell me to come down to a B, right? Maybe an A minus, and even that's a stretch, right? Just metaphorically thinking of this. So the concepts of this excellencism are work toward excellence rather than perfection. 2, set high but not impossible standards. 3, be open to new experiences. That sounds great. Perfectionists are not usually open to new experiences, though. They want predictable ones in which they can control. So the notion of open to new experiences is a huge stretch for most perfectionists, or even kids who are excessive worriers, who are on the anxiety spectrum, right? So they're open to new experiences. And the 4th concept is have positive, creative problem solving. So you would think that people who are perfectionists, because they're trying to achieve a goal of perfection in whatever realistic or unrealistic ways that is, would be good problem solvers. And usually, I will say, my experience is in some areas, they're amazing problem solvers. And in some areas, again, because of the avoidance, they're not. So it seems dramatic. So I would say as a parent, and again, this applies really, this is just great, I think, a great parenting tip in general, but you want to be a problem solver always, or I use a lot of positive terminology, so I say a solution finder, right? You can be solution focused, or you can be a problem solver. I use the words more, my own words are more solution focused because it primes the brain for positivity. Okay? I always say to people, I choose my words very carefully. There's usually extreme intent. Both of them will get you to the same end result, but when you say, let's come up with some solutions, I wonder what some solutions are to that. It primes you for solutions. If you say there's a problem, and how are you going to solve it? It actually activates a different part of the brain. So both can be fine. There are problems in the world, but we want them to be good problem solvers. Now, positive creative problem solving. I'm going to give you an example that's not traditionally listed under here, but is really important, which is looking at cognitive reattributions, right? So this is a term that comes from CBT therapy that says, it's basically a psychological term for how do you rethink something, right? So something happens that was less than what your child wanted. It didn't work out the way they had hoped. And so you really want to do like attributions. What are the reattributions? How can we think about what led to that? How did that outcome come out? What could we do differently in the future? What could we have done differently in the past? So what parents generally do, because I watch it a lot, is they go into like consoling, right? Like, it's okay. We tell them it's okay. Like, it doesn't feel okay though. It just doesn't feel okay to them. It's okay. There's always the next time. Like, I hear the same things that people say because they're comfortable to say, they're easy. And you have to think about what just comes out of your mouth. It's easy for that to come out of your mouth. However, kids that are wired like this actually respond well when you take them seriously, even though like, oh, you got a 98 on a test, right? I'm using tests just because it's easy. Or it took you a week to build that Lego thing instead of 5 days like Jimmy next door did or something. I take them seriously because it's serious to them. It's actually very serious to them, right? So, I see you're really disappointed in the outcome of that. Yeah, see, I knew it. I knew I couldn't do it. I knew I was just stupid. And then, the self-talk gets really negative. So I wonder what we're going to do about it. What are we going to do? And I wonder if there's something different we can do for the future. And I wonder, let's actually look back. And sometimes I can get to the excessive worry part. Oh, so you spent a week planning how that was going to come out. Wow, that must be really disappointing when it didn't even come out the way you wanted it to and you spent so long planning it. So I validate their process. I look at their process, and we got to come up with how could we do it differently in the future. So really trying to like dive deep in that way and not just saying like it's okay and you'll do better the next time. It's just too pacifying for them. And remember, hopefully I've made a case for how serious this is in terms of mental health. So it's like a mental health emergency in their experience. So we have to meet them where they're at. This requires a paradigm shift, okay? And I really liked this quote. This actually just came from an October 22 Washington Post article, which says it's like adding extra hours. We can all relate to this, I think, of training at the gym on top of the recommended regimen, right? So do an hour, we're going to do 2, only to realize that you've overtrained and are so depleted that you can't even do the basics anymore, right? We've exhausted ourselves. That's where perfectionism tends to land us, in the zones of diminishing and decreasing returns. I really liked that, right? And there are a lot of kids, depending on your kid, that you could actually use that exact phrase. Uh-oh, I think we're in the zone of diminishing returns. You've studied now. I mean, the hours of studying that a perfectionist will do is unbelievable. So I would probably say to a kid, after 10, we're kind of hitting the zone of diminishing returns at this point. I know you're looking at the flashcards over and over, but your brain is really not taking it in. The best thing you could do for yourself is go to sleep. If you go to sleep right now, your brain will work all night long at consolidating the 5 hours of studying that you just did. But if you do 2 more hours of that, your brain is going to be on full shutdown fatigue, and what it's going to be doing at night is trying to get restoration rather than consolidation. I know most people don't talk to their kids this way. I fully acknowledge that, but it is actually what's going on. Okay, so there's a little brain stuff for you. But like whatever your words would be, right? I like this term because again, it's unique, it's novel. You got to get their attention. So, we're in the zone of diminishing returns. We got to stop this. And where more effort to achieve is elusive perfection, and just makes us less productive, less creative. Again, research-based. It's a good paradigm shift. So we've got some time. I would love to kind of ask you guys, which of the reframes or ideas can you start implementing to support your perfectionistic child? How will you do it? When can you start? I'm open. We could either do it in small groups or big groups. I want to do it in big groups because I want to hear what you guys all think, but yes.
So how you will know it is puberty or anxiety or perfectionism?
Yeah, good question. Great. Oh my gosh, you just said my favorite word, puberty. Sounds so weird. Okay, so I'm writing a book on puberty right now. I've been doing a course on puberty for 10 years. And so because I love that age of kids, I love middle schoolers. But little tidbit, puberty, normal to start at 8 years old now. 8 years old, normal, not considered abnormal. See, everyone's gonna be shocked when this book comes out. It's gonna be great. Yes, we are. And during the pandemic, if there's any endocrinologists in the room, they saw a huge uprise. More stress, earlier your puberty comes. So this could be a whole second part of this talk, but there's a lot to say about that. So the question is, if anybody didn't hear it, basically, how do you know if it's puberty, if this is perfectionism, or if this is anxiety? Okay? So seriously, I hear. Like seriously. Okay. So first thing you want to think, let me get you in the puberty mindset. Most people aren't. 8 years old, 3rd, even sometimes 2nd grade. Okay? 2nd or 3rd grade. It's considered earlier puberty, but it's not early puberty. It's not precocious puberty. So what you want to start thinking is early, like around 3rd grade, I'd say more so, is even if it's not your kid that's developing, kids around them are starting to already, okay? And that has an impact on a milieu. We all know, all the girls that went to college in the dorm, right? We were all in our cycles together because there's a process of entrainment and hormones affect one another. So you do want to start thinking that. So even if your kid is not showing signs of puberty, there are probably other kids that are starting around, again, for girls 8 and boys 9. And so that has a real impact. So how that would first look is more moodiness. That's different than anything I've been talking about today. Okay? So a hallmark of puberty is moodiness, or the clinical term, dysregulation. Okay? So what's the joke? I want to hear. You're just laughing. So if you have a kid that might be in puberty and like going through some of this, and so it starts though with moodiness. And then it starts with and then it leads to self-consciousness. Still different from what I was talking about today, right? Self-conscious, of course, I can be self-conscious and be like, oh my God, what are people going to think about my outfit? But it's a one-off. Like, it's not pervasive. But normal for puberty, all of a sudden, like, these sneakers are stupid. Really? Like, I thought they're cool, they're Converse, whatever. No, they're stupid, they're dirty. Like, it seems really irrational, and it's very sporadic and unpredictable. So I'm still in the lane of puberty. So you're looking for moodiness, you're looking for self-consciousness, and for girls starting at age 10, you're looking for the plummet of their self-esteem. Oh, it's so heartbreaking. But at age 10, girls' self-esteem plummets. They do not raise their hands the same way anymore. They do not want to take chances anymore. That you would know too in the lane of puberty, because a perfectionist, you'd say there were years of that. And in puberty, it would be like, out of nowhere, all of a sudden, my kid's not participating as much. So that's puberty, right? And then the next one is a worrier. The biggest characteristic to know is when the stressor or the trigger is over, the worry ends, right? So I was giving Colleen over here an example because she asked me that question. I said, 2 kids are taking a test. One is a worrier and one is anxious. The anxious kid, it's done. The bell rings and they walk out. The anxious kid is like, oh my God, I think number 55, I'm pretty sure I got that one wrong. I wonder if I can go back in during lunch. I wonder if the teacher would let me retake. They're like looping with, I think I didn't do that right. I think if I just went in, right? They're going over. The worrier was worried going into it. When it's done, it's done. They're like, I don't know, I did my best. We'll find out. We'll find out tomorrow. Nothing I can do now. They have a very it's over. There's nothing I can do now. I did my best. I've walked out, and the test is handed in. The anxious kid is circling, ruminating, anticipating. Yes? Yes. Good question. So when you have a ruminator, and this is just in general, and you're trying to get them out of a cycle, right? So one of the things you want to do, actually, truly, is to say, stop. This is a little formula. Stop. Nope, just stop. Breathe. So anybody who's anxious or anybody who knows anxiety runs in their family and they just don't want their kid to turn from worrier to anxious, you have to be a master breather. Truly, it's the fastest way to calm your central nervous system. It's free. It's available anywhere. I could do it right now. Right? And it works. And it really works. Your kids have to be like breathing ninjas. Anybody who's worked with me hears me say, I have no stake in this, but there's a deck called Yoga Pretzels. It is available on Amazon or anywhere. And it's beautiful, and it's made for kids, and it has the most beautiful breathing animal breaths. It's such a great way to get kids to learn. So I'll be like, stop, breathe. Should we be an elephant or a snake right now? Right? And I give them control. Okay, I want it to be a snake. A snake is, yep, you hiss it out. A bee, you buzz it out. An elephant is big body. That's elephant breath. So you want to get your kids to be master breathers. So stop, breathe. Now we think. We don't think when we're under stress. Our brain is hijacked, right? So now we think, well, I just think that I could have gotten more. Oh, okay. So So if they start getting worked up again, so you start it over until it's stop, breathe, think, then act. The last one is then you act. The last thing you do is act. You stop, you breathe, you think, then you act. So in the case of this, right, they're ruminating about that they don't think they did that well. If they just could go back, they could probably change that answer and probably do much better. There's lots of solutions. It depends on their age. Okay, you feel that way? Maybe tomorrow when you get the test back, why don't we first see the evidence, right? Is it really worth it for the next 12 hours to think you got number 55 wrong? Is that going to change anything? No. So you have to be very grounded, very rational, because they can have irrational thoughts. So this isn't a time to massage it. This is a good time to be straightforward. So I would say, Alice, you could spend all of tonight and tomorrow morning worried about that test. You could do that. That is your right. It's thinking, and I can't stop you from doing it. Or we can put it on a shelf. That's very helpful. Be literal, like literal/metaphoric. Picture that you're going to take that word, you're going to put it in a box, and we're going to put it on a shelf over here. And we're not throwing it away. It's there, I promise. It's right here. But we're going to leave it on the shelf. And tomorrow, when you actually get the test back, we'll do another action. So tonight's act is going to be put it in a box and put it on the shelf. Let's have a fun night or whatever. Let's move on with our night. Or you could spend the whole rest of the night worrying, and tomorrow you could wind up finding out that you did just fine, right? And so that kind of, you want to be rational, you want to be grounded, and if they're real worked up, you want to be in charge because they're out of control. And their minds are like spinning in circles. It's like when you take someone's face and you're like, stop! Like it's like the equivalent of that. It's a stop. Stop, breathe, think, and act. Is that helpful for you? It's really effective.
I guess the follow-up question is, what if we are the ones that need to stop ourselves?
Yes. Yes. That's right. That's so, don't worry. Once you start doing this, they're going to tell you you need to stop, breathe, think, and act. Always put your oxygen mask on first. That really is true. I know it's a little cliche, it gets overused, but you have to. A dysregulated adult cannot regulate a dysregulated child. Period. End of story. That's a quote. A dysregulated adult. You can't walk in the room going crazy, right? Your two kids are fighting in the room or whatever, and you walk in, you're like, what's going on in here? And like everybody's crazying up, right? So even if you're like, oh, they're at it again, you do have to breathe. And for me, this might be just me, but I go in thinking like, if I showed up right now the way ideally I'd want to, what would I do? Right? That's a very positive psychology. It just comes natural for me now, though. I practice that. If I showed up, if I handled it, if I had this talk with my kid in an ideal way. I wish my friend Kim was going to come today, and I had an issue last week, and I told her, like, okay, I've been thinking about it overnight, and this is how I'm going to deal with my daughter. She's like, oh, my God, you even have those thoughts? I'm like, yes, because I've pictured it in my head. This is how I want to confront a situation about lying, right? And so everyone's going to have a different imagination, however you want to show up. It's very helpful. So, yes, we always come first. Someone had a hand up over here. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. I know. I got it. Yeah, Mom. I know. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Such a good question. Did everybody hear that? Okay, here. Say it again.
Not sure I can repeat this. So do you have any tips to offer your perfectionist child as you're working through that problem-solving stage? Do you say, great, come back to me in an hour, let's talk about it tomorrow? Or do you sit there and help them work through it and you do it together?
Okay, great question. Love that. I'm going to give you a couple options because there's no perfect one-size-fits-all. But yes, I will bring it to life. This is the kid that's like, yeah, I know. Just stop talking. Right? Like, you just don't know anything basically anymore, right? And so that's the general, right? Because when the younger they are, the more open they are. It's the older they get. They know better than you. So I would very much meet them where they're at. I'd say, again, I know this is a little bit therapized. You're going to make this into your own words. But my natural would be, I can see that you feel you have a good solution for this. I'm so happy. Will you let me know how that works out for you? That's it. It's all on you, right? That's probably my number one go-to thing. So like, yeah, I know what I'm going to do. Okay. All right. So tomorrow after school, you'll let me know how that works out. Or after you talk to the coach, you'll let me know how that goes, right? And then you walk away. There's this idea that I love. This is Lisa D'Amour, for anybody who follows her, that parents, when kids become teenagers, become potted plants. Has anyone heard this? This is her idea of like, your job is to basically be the potted plant of the house. You're there, you're alive, you're thriving, you don't really talk that much, but you're very available, right? I'm always going to be here when you need me. And I love that concept. Like, at some point, I am here. I'm your steady. And I'm going to be here when you need me. But otherwise, I'm no longer like octopus arms anymore, right? Coddling and helping and suggesting and advising and talking. And so the octopus is mine thing, but Lisa D'Amours is the potted plant. And I don't know the age of your kid, but so that's why there's a lot of options to this. But essentially, kids do terribly. They hate it when we are persistent in telling them what to do. And it kills me sometimes because the answer seems so obvious sometimes, right? It's like, oh my gosh, will you just listen to me? I've been through this before. I've been a kid before. I've been rejected before, whatever. But they don't believe us that we've been kids before. They will refuse to believe that we were ever a kid, we were ever a teen, we were ever in high school, we know what they're going through, we've ever had a heart broken. That's just hard. We just don't seem relatable. I don't care how hard we try. We just don't seem relatable. My daughter will be like, you don't know what high school's like. I'm like, yes, I do. I work with high school kids every day. And she's like, well, whatever. Like, they're different. I mean, so it doesn't matter. I'm like, I'm in a high school. It doesn't matter. I don't know anything, right? So I wait for my invitation at some age. I'm not saying necessarily when they're 8, but I do think that pretty much when they're 11 or 12, they just got it, right? And then I'm a huge fan of like the nighttime routine, no matter how old they are, even teenagers. There's still you might not be tucking them in, reading them books, but nighttime is such a great, once you can get them off of FaceTime and Snapchat and all that stuff, but it's a great time to come back in and just like, okay, just checking in, the night good, I'm going to be going to bed. It's like the most relaxed they are, much more open. You can, if you really feel like you need to, that could be a time to be like, okay, so you feel good about your plan for tomorrow? So not like, you sure you got this, right? Subtle difference. But that's easy to be like, you sure you know what you're doing tomorrow? You sure? And then just like, yeah, that's going to provoke, even if they don't, it's going to provoke it. But like, you feel good about it? Yeah. Hold pauses too. One parenting tip I would give is we are terrible at silence. Hold the silence. Hold the pause. Hold the space. However you want to think of it. Like, so you feel good about it. And I can hold an uncomfortable pause like no one's business, right? Like, so, yeah. And, some kids, you got to know your kid. Like, can you rub their leg? Can you give them a little affection? Or is that way off? Wherever they're at, you got to meet them where they're at. Even if you want to give a hug, even if they're not feeling that, don't go for it, right? You got to take their lead. You got to let them be where they're at. Unless it's an emergency, it's a crisis. That's different. But for 95% of what we're talking about, we do feel like we know better and we've been there and they don't want to hear it. So we have to make ourselves available so that when they actually want to visit the potted plant, we're there. Yes. Push back. Wait. She's pushing back. Hold on. Okay. I'll role play if you want. I like role play.
Okay, so let me know what your plan looks like. The invitation isn't there. They fail again. They put more pressure on themselves.
Hold up. Problem number 1, let me know what your plan looks like. You're on the defense. Now I got to answer you. I said, so you feel good about your plan? You got it. You got this?
Okay, so they feel good about it.
Yep, Mom, yep.
Okay. Repeat, the behavior repeats.
Okay, the next day.
Or the next assignment.
Okay.
So at what point do you come in as a parent to say, hey, here are some options, or have you thought about this? Like, at what point do you plant seeds?
Okay, I like to role play. I'm going to keep role playing this. So next day comes, the plan didn't work. Okay, you find that out. However you find it out, you see a grade or you hear from whatever, right? So I love that you had a plan. I'm wondering how you think it went. First, I'm wondering how you think it went. You have to remember that anytime we ask somebody a question, no matter what the question, even how are you, it's defense. You feel defensive. Defensive just because of stress. Stress is eustress or distress. Eustress is positive stress, like, how are you? And everything's good. So you're eustress. You're happy to tell me everything's going so well. I got a raise at work, whatever, right? But the same question for you, how are you? Going through a divorce, right? Way different feeling. I'm giving that example because, but questions, I want you to remember that. Questions to human beings make us defensive, just instantly. And then we can work through that. Like sometimes it's like, oh yeah, she's a safe person, or she's not going to judge me. And we can come down. Or they ask us the question like, so what's going to be your plan for tomorrow? Because today's plan didn't actually work. right? Now, all of a sudden, like, I am totally, like, I'm going to fight you. Like, I'm going to fight you, Mom. Like, I'm going to take you down, right? And how I'm going to take you down is I'm going to ignore you and I'm going to dismiss you. So just think about your wording on how, like, okay, so I'm so glad, I'm proud of you. You tried that. You tried that, right? So I know this is hard and it's much easier in here to say this, but like, I'm proud of you. You went to your teacher, you talked to them. Sounds like the outcome didn't work out the way you wanted to. So what are we going to do differently? When can we are you open to doing that now? No, you're hungry? Okay. How about we get a snack? Are you open to doing that, let's say, in an hour? Okay. Oh, when Dad gets home? Okay, we'll wait till, you know what I mean? So you give them some control in that, but I'm going to hold you accountable because I let you, or I opened that doorway for you to have that space. It didn't work out. It's fine. First of all, let's praise them. Dude, you tried. It didn't work out. Okay, we got to just do it. Plan B, plan C, plan D, plan E, right? That needs to be a part of life. I'm a huge plan B. Oh my gosh, I'm constantly like, okay, well, plan B. It's like my go-to thing. Yeah, it didn't work out. All right, well, what's our plan B? It's like that. The message is like, yeah, stuff doesn't work out all the time. Move on to plan B. And I understand that sometimes you feel like the stakes are really high. I was just talking to somebody in here. Are you still here, Cindy? No, she's still here. Oh, she's back there. We were talking about the stakes being really high and it feel like college stuff or whatever. And then you go through it and you're like, yeah, I probably didn't need to be that intense, but I just didn't know because guess what? It's new for me too. So that's the other thing I will say. Humble yourselves. You don't know what you're doing half the time, right? Like, so say to your kid, like, this is my first time going through this, buddy. I'm doing my best too. They love messages like that. You're my first 7th grader I've ever had. You're my first junior I've never done college applications in 2023. I'm not trying to ride you. I know it feels that way. I'm trying to learn. Oh my gosh, that message brings you down. Now you're approachable, you're relatable, you're not stern. I went through college, I did it myself. Like we all know, college was not nearly as competitive as it is now, right? It wasn't like that. I didn't even feel any stress applying to schools. I just applied, got in, and went. Like it was nothing. So I would just say, like, humble yourself, calm down as much as you can let them have it, but you're holding them accountable, no question. This is not a free pass to keep having 10 fails, but it is the message of we try, we fail. We probably fail more than we succeed. That's how we learn. It's okay. I'm here with you. And I can't be here with you if I'm fighting you, right? So, okay.
So I hear you talking, this child's talking back to you.
Yes.
And I know I'm the only one that has this problem with my teenager, but my answer that
Don't
I get.
talk?
I
Oh,
don't
what do
know.
you say?
I don't know.
Oh,
That's
I
what
don't
they tell me.
know.
I don't know.
I don't know.
How about, and I go through everything you just said. I don't know.
Yeah, good.
Or
I'm
even, I
so
don't
glad. What do you mean you don't know? Okay, 2 answers. So one of them is, okay, so let's pretend you knew. Let's just pretend you knew. What do you think would be the situation? For some reason, that works really, really well. That's one. Pretend you know. Second one is, I think I know. Do you want to hear it? No? Okay. Well, let me know, because I actually think that I might know and I might have a good idea around this. I can text it to you. I can write it down for you. I can talk to you about it. I can leave you a little note. But I feel like I know and it's kind of bursting out of me. How could I get you that information? Not now. Ugh. Yeah, keep role playing. I love yeah, you can roll your eyes and huff and all that. I mean, right? So at some point, if you don't know, the other thing, super positive thing to say is, yeah, there's a lot of things you don't know. There's a lot of things I don't know. This happens to be one where I think I know. So now I've humbled myself again. I don't know a lot of stuff either. This one, though, I think I know. Or I think I at least have a way to get us started to know. So again, what happens with parenting is we become very confrontational with each other. The I don't knows irritate us to no end. No one has mentioned shutdown yet. The kid who just doesn't talk. Yeah, they're like, me! Like lots of, right? They just don't talk, right? Like, there's nothing's coming out. So now you've got nothing, which actually drives us more crazy because we want to talk and argue, actually, right? So there's lots of scenarios. But humble yourselves. Be curious. Be very curious. You know, I'm not really sure either. I think I've got I know anyone who knows me goes, a lot of my parenting is a lot of acting, right? Like, I think that, and everyone has to have their own authentic version. This is my authentic version of acting, right? Like, I think I think I could probably come up with like maybe 1 or 2 ideas. I think. Like, so why do I do that? Because I don't want to seem like I'm scary. Like I know, imagine me, the parenting expert. Whoo! I've heard a time or two before, and you're supposed to be a parenting expert, right? Like I'm not immune to any of this, right? So I have to humble myself, and I am wrong sometimes, and all the things. But I will say, because I sit with parents all the time, parents really want to assert their knowledge. They want to let the kids know we know. And remember, we are as unrelatable as it gets to them. So it's on us. It's on us to change that so that we're more curious. I love curiosity. Just question asking, brainstorming. Oh, okay, you have the mic.
Yes, thank
Yes.
you. You said there's a correlation with social media. So what do you advise? Does restricting backfire? Like, what can we do? What should we do? Like, yeah.
Oh, how old are your kids?
Well,
7
they
minutes.
just got their first phones. So they're they're about to turn 14 and 12, 6th and 8th grade, and then there's
Okay.
a 10-year-old as well. But yeah,
So contract. You got a contract?
contract with the phone.
Contract. Social media contract. Phone contract. Got a contract. Go on Common Sense Media or
Okay.
anything else online. They have sample contracts.
Mm-hmm.
That helps a lot. So, meaning everything's on there. It prompts you. It's a fill in the blank. So so it'll say things like everything from if you lose your phone, if you crack your phone, how many hours should you spend on it? What happens if you don't? What's the consequence? It's really nice to be proactive.
Okay. Like they're asking for Snapchat.
Yeah.
Do I say yes? No, I don't want them to. But
I mean,
don't want it to
Snapchat
backfire.
is like TikTok's the worst.
But they're feeling left out, and they were feeling left out before because they were the only ones that
I
didn't have
know.
phones. So now they have phones, but they still feel left out.
I know,
I'm like,
because
when's
they
it gonna
don't use
end?
text anymore because they don't want us to see what they're saying, so they only use Snapchat.
Mm-hmm.
So that's their workaround. It is true. They'll still be kept left out of the loop if they don't get Snapchat.
So what's worse?
Them being mad at you because you won't let them get it, and they're
Them feeling
socially
left out.
ostracized.
Yeah.
Or have it. Well, I think have it with limits. That's what I think. As much as it pains me,
Okay.
I used to do the whole the age advisory on those things are 13. But
Yeah.
98% of people are 11 on there. You know what I mean? So it's like
Yeah.
of course, what I want to say is social media is terrible for kids. We know it's the demise of our culture, and that's true.
Yeah.
But we do also need digital balance, and we need digital wellness. The state of New Jersey just passed, we should be next. If there's any lobbyist political people in here, they're passing some laws that kids need to get digital citizenship. That needs to be part of the curriculum. It really does need to be part of the curriculum. So I would just say everything from you have to know their passwords. You can look through their things at any time. If you see anything inappropriate, when they get older, having those apps, yeah, I'm a fan of those. If you want to have those Bark or whatever apps that will ping you if words like suicide, cutting, whatever, certain words come up, content, images. I'll say one other thing about just social media and just access. The stats are by 11 years old, 90% of kids have viewed online porn. 90% of kids by the age of 11 have viewed online porn. So we have serious, serious digital wellness problems to deal with. So I would say for your kids, I understand it is true that socially that's where kids are at. Just limits. And that's what the research says. Even with TikTok, if you can get them to stop looking at TikTok at minute 19, no more than 20, the brain doesn't get totally rewired with that reward dopamine circuit that needs it. So we just need breaks. There's some common sense. I really am a fan, actually, of Common Sense Media, if people like that. But there's some things that you can do to slow it down. But the reality is it's here. So I think that would be my message to your kids. It's here, and we're going to learn to work with it. And you're definitely going to break the rules. And I'm definitely going to take it. And you cannot mess around with that. I'm definitely going to have this consequence. But I would set them up. Don't set them up to fail. They're going to fail. The setup is you're going to fail. You're going to do something that I told you not to do on here. You're going to send an image. I told you not to do TikToks in a bikini. I told you not to post when everybody's raging at a party. But they do it anyway. So at 11 and 13, you still have the opportunity to say, I want to support you in this. It makes me a little uncomfortable. It's new for me. And I'm doing the best that I can. Here's what I can promise you. These are the rules. And if you break them, I promise you that I will follow through on this consequence. That's probably one of the best messages you can give your kids, starting off. Now you. Hang on.
With the fact that the schools and the districts are constantly saying, here's your kid's percentile. Here's where they rank in the class.
Yes.
And they're seeing it. You know,
Yes.
how do you take away the anxiety when it's there from, what, grade 2?
Yep. I think that's such a good question. Here's the reality. I just went through this last week. My kid brought home their STAR testing. It was in a sealed envelope. At least they did that. But he opened it. And he was like, what does this number mean? And I wanted to be like, that means below average. But I was like, oh, that just means how you're functioning right now. Great, give it to me. So here's the reality. It's our interpretation of what it means. It is us. It is still us. It's still kids under the age of 12 are most influenced by their parents. So my personal kids don't, maybe it's extreme, but they don't care about stuff like that because I've put about 0 value. Behind the scenes, though, I do. So I take the data behind the scenes and I go, oh, this one needs a math tutor or whatever. But to their faces, I say, oh, this is just an indicator of how you're doing right now. And then we move on to what the actual conversation at least is relevant for us, which is, first of all, did you put effort into that? Or were you like tired? Were you going through it really quickly? How's it going at school for you? Is there anything you want support with? So we place the value of those numbers. Yes, I'm not in the clouds. I know they get pounded with grades. They get pounded with percentiles and then eventually college. Again, though, they're going to come home and they're going to look to us to be the barometer. Yes, that's right. That matters. Yep, you better get study more, right? Or something in the middle. And then I'm probably on this end where I know all the stats. I know that barely any of this matters. It doesn't matter. There's a lot that doesn't matter, and I know what does. And so I have chosen mental health and play and wellness over those things. So that's the message that at home they get. Are there times where, I don't know, there's time, I'll use different kids, where different kids will know what it means and it makes them feel bad. So then I would just simply say, oh, do you want that number to look different? Not better? Do you just want it to look different? Yeah, I think so. I think everybody else did better than me. Oh, okay, what do you think we need to do to make that number look different? Right? So it's really just about what do we ascribe, right? For some person, a kid in the 50th percentile, perfectly happy. For another, that's totally unacceptable. And that's a home value. That's something that each and every one of us have to instill at home. Okay, this is probably the last question you get. Oh, two? Two. I don't mind staying.
Mine's only a comment.
Oh, comment.
And I've been here 15 years and I've never been on the mic, so I'm probably... I just want to tell you what we did in our house that I think worked really well, that I would really, really strongest advice I could give you is every night, whatever time your kids go to bed, they plug their phones in your room or your bathroom. You get a multi-phone plug, and every night they turn those phones in because all the bad stuff happens at night in their rooms.
Yeah, definitely. And that'll be in the contract. It'll prompt you. Right, so you're going to, it's great because you're going to get prompted and you'll think about everything, for each kid. Mm-hmm.
Thank you. I need to do that. I'm going to do that tonight. So if I am more of the type of parent that is like, no, good job, I love the effort, but husband is more like, this matters. So what would you suggest in, 100 words or less? Therapy?
In
probably.
30 seconds. It's great. I mean, really the question is around like one parent really cares about things like grades and things, and the other one's like, great job, right? And so here's the truth. We all have our personalities and we all have our values. And so my answer to you would really be, what are our family's values? And you and your husband have to, you'll get to a value because he'll be like, well, I want them to be successful. I want them to do well. So do you, right? And so it becomes a value statement. So then once you have a family value statement, everything and all your comments can come from there. And so even when you have different styles and maybe, one parent is stricter or says stuff like that, it's easy for you to go back and go, you know what, Dad and I, we have the same value. We want you to be successful. We want you to have options in the future. We'd love for you to go to college. And there's different ways to get there. And that's that's dad's. He cares about stuff like that. I care that you're doing the best that you can. Are they adding up? Do the numbers and the effort add up? If they are, great. Let's talk to dad about it. So if you have like a commonality with a value statement, we care for your success and future, then you use that as the guiding principle, knowing that sometimes you arrive at that conclusion in two different ways. So I want to be conscious of your time. Thank you guys so much for coming. There are, I think, a couple books left maybe that you could buy, and I'm happy to stay for a few minutes and chat. Thank you.